everybody. And good morning to all those who are watching online around the country and around the world today. We are so glad that you are part of the Crossroads family. You know, this week we're going to finish up a series that we've been doing for a while called All In. Next week we're going to have Craig Looper. Craig Looper was our executive pastor for years. He's now a missionary and has been serving in Nairobi, Kenya, and just an incredible communicator if you've never heard him. So we were really blessed to have him. And then after that, we're going to be starting our Christmas series. And I cannot wait for this series. I really can't, because the series is going to be this: all I want for Christmas is hope. All I want for Christmas is peace. All I want for Christmas is joy. And I don't know about you, but man, I can use a whole lot of every single one of those. And just our whole world right now. Can it use some peace? And can it use some hope? And can it use some joy? And so this is a great time to invite friends. This is a great time to invite family. It's a great time to come back and hear this. But especially if you, think of it. If you can even invite one person, just a few people, one person, you can change a person's destiny. You can change a whole family. You can change everything, what's going to happen, even in how they're facing this tough time that we're all living in right now. So make sure you not only show up, but make sure you invite somebody as well. You know, Joshua Chamberlain wasn't a soldier. In fact, he was a teacher in rhetoric, and he was also a person who was a student in seminary. But when the call to arms came during the Civil War, he said, "Count me in." And he raised to the level of a colonel, and then he was in charge of the 30th volunteer Maine regiment. So on July the 2nd, 1863, Mr. Chamberlain, Colonel Chamberlain, along with his 300 guys, were on the top of Little Round Top in the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, Little Round Top, that was the high ground. And what that meant is a lot of military strategists believe this, that if Little Round Top would have been surrendered by the Union, then also they would have lost the Battle of Gettysburg. And if they lost the Battle of Gettysburg, they believed that they would have lost the Civil War as well. So what I'm about to tell you, the fact that we are still the United States of America, all hinged on this little event of what I'm about to say. Well, Colonel Chamberlain was on there at the top of Little Round Top, and at 2:20 in the afternoon that day, there were thousands of Confederates that came and tried to storm Little Round Top. They did it in a charge, and they were able to withhold them from the first charge, and the second charge, and then the third charge, and the fourth charge, and even the fifth charge, and his 300 men were reduced to 80 soldiers. Colonel Chamberlain was hit in the belt buckle and knocked to the ground, but he got back up and continued to fight. A sergeant came and told him there were going to be no reinforcements to help them out, and every single one of his guys, at the most, only had one bullet left in their armament. So you imagine this. Imagine just what thinking of the despair that they were about to face. And then matters got worse when their lookout, which was a little boy up at the top of a tree, said they are forming together to do another charge. Well, Colonel Chamberlain realized that the smartest thing to do was going to be to surrender, but that wasn't in his blood, that wasn't in his makeup. Nothing in his makeup was to surrender. So what he did is he had the guys perform a perfect right wheel, mount bayonets, and charge the enemy. And in one of the most amazing things that have ever happened in the history of our nation's armed forces, that you had 80 guys 80 Union soldiers capture 4,000 Confederate soldiers, most of the Union soldiers not even having one bullet in their gun. And so at the end of the whole Union was saved by an incredible charge that they did. Now, think of it. Colonel Chamberlain became the governor of Maine after the war. He also became the president of his alma mater, and then he also received a couple decades later the Medal of Honor. But I love what he said when he received that honor. He said this. He asked, "I had deep within me the inability to do nothing." I love that. The inability to do nothing. I knew that I may die, but I also knew that I would not die with a bullet in my back. The inability to do nothing. Isn't that cool? Isn't that exactly what God has done with us? I mean, God saw us dying in our sins, separated from him, and he had the inability to do nothing, and that's why he sent his son to die on a cross for us. Also, Jesus had the inability to do nothing. He would see people sick and he would heal them. He would see people possessed by demons and he would set them free. He would see people hungry and he would feed them. He would see his disciples out in a boat in a storm and he would calm the storm. He had the inability to do nothing. And maybe it's time we started charging our things as well. Maybe it's time that we start charging our marriage, or that we charge our family, or we charge our children, or we charge our finances, or we charge our health, or we charge our addictions, or we charge our hopes and our dreams, or most of all, we charge the forces of darkness, right? That's something we are all called to do. And something that you and I have maybe forgotten about is that we are born in a battlefield. We're not born in a peaceful situation. There is a cosmic war going on between God and Satan, between the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light, between God's kingdom and Satan's forces. And we're born smack dab in the middle of it. And something that a lot of times we may have forgotten too is that God calls us to the offensive. Look what Jesus said in Matthew. He said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And I don't know if you thought about this, but gates, they're defensive, right? And that means we're on the offensive, not on the defensive. And a verse that Jesus said changed my life when I understood. My whole worldview changed when I read this verse. And it says this. Jesus is saying, from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing, and forceful people lay hold of it. You know what that means? That means I used to have the picture that the church and God's people were just kind of hunkered down like at the Alamo, just waiting for the enemy to overwhelm us and defeat us. And that's the exact opposite, that there are strongholds out there that we are supposed to be on the offensive and we're supposed to be taking down. I mean, there are strongholds in our government. There are strongholds in our schools. There are strongholds in our family. There are strongholds in our marriages. There are strongholds all around that we see in our businesses and in wherever we do work. In our culture, there is stronghold after stronghold, and we are called to take those back what the enemy stole, just what we sang about. And I love the verse that says that the God of peace will soon stomp Satan under your feet. And that blows me away that it's not under his feet, it's under our feet. But we've got to do something about it. We're the ones that are called to go and make a difference in this world. And last week we took a look at just the start of a two-part series on Jonathan and his armor bearer. Here's the story. What you have is the Israelites were being overwhelmed and defeated by the Philistines. The Philistines came in and they were like their always enemy, always whooping up on them, always trying to hurt them, always trying to destroy them. And they came with a huge army, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of soldiers. They had each had a sword in their hand. They had 3,000 chariots and 6,000 charioteers. Those were the tanks in their days. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you've got the Israelites, you've got 600 soldiers in the entire army. You've got only 2 swords in the entire army. And so what you have is Saul, who was the king in those days. He's hiding with his people, sitting there under a pomegranate tree. Instead of engaging the enemy, he is languishing there, not waiting and getting his second breath, but they're just staying there. They're staying there, never going to engage the enemy. They're waiting just to be defeated. And Jonathan, his son, says, no, man, I'm not. I have the inability to do nothing. I see something happening. We are on the offensive, and we're going to take the land for God. And so he said to his armor bearer, hey, let's go up there and let's take on the enemy. There was a Philistine outpost up there, and he said, let's go on. And his armor bearer, I love him. He goes, you do whatever you think. I am with you, heart and soul. I'm right behind you. And I love what Jonathan said. He said, God can save whether by many or by few. And I want you to hear that. This is not in my notes. Just think of it. God does so much of his work by few. You know, every revival in our country, every great awakening in our country, it started with a handful of people. It didn't start with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. It started with one prayer group. I mean, things that God does usually starts with just a handful of people, and that's when it explodes. That's when God just does amazing things as just a few people show up to do something. And then so he does something. Jonathan says, we're going to do something crazy. We're going to expose ourselves to the enemy, which is crazy. The only thing they had going for them was the element of surprise. And they came out going, "Yoo-hoo, guys, we're down here." And he said, "This will be our sign. If they say, hey, come up here, then we're going to go up there and we know God's put them in our hands." So here's what happens. "Look," said the Philistines, "the Hebrews are crawling out of their holes they were hiding in." The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor bearer, "Come up to us and we'll teach you a lesson." They're talking smack. So Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Climb up with me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." And I saw the hand of Israel. What do you mean the hand of Israel? I could understand if he said, put him in our hands. Where's Israel? Israel's hiding. Israel has nothing to do with this battle right now. It's only two guys showing up. But something that Jonathan knew is it's not just about him. It's about all of God's people. It's about all of God's kingdom. And we represent that. We represent God and everybody as we take a stand. Another thing is this. He said, Jonathan climbed up using, don't miss this, using his hands and feet with his armor bearer right behind him. Again, totally stupid military strategy. They have one sword between them. The enemy has the high ground. The pitch is so steep that they have to climb using hands and feet, and they do a frontal attack in the middle of broad daylight. This is ridiculous. So can God possibly do it when they make the dumbest strategy possible? God can show up anytime and anywhere. Look what happens. The Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer followed behind him and killed behind him. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in an area about half an acre. Oh, that's just getting started. Watch what happens after that. Then panic struck the whole army. Those in the camp and field and those in the outpost and the raiding parties and the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. All God needed was for one person, two people to do some action, and that's when he reacted. That's when it caused God to act. All God needs is somebody just to pray, and God acts. All he needs is somebody to take a stand, and God acts. All we have to do is show up and watch what God does when we do that. You know, there's an amazing story about a man by the name of Roy Sullivan. This guy's incredible because he was a forest ranger in the Shenandoah National Forest or National Park. And something happened is between 1942 and 1977, you're not going to believe this, but he was struck by lightning 7 different times in 7 different parts of his body, in 7 different places where he was. And here's just one of the examples of that. He earned the nickname of either the human lightning rod or the spark ranger. I like that. But here's what happens. It says, on August the 7th, 1973, while he was out on patrol in the park, Sullivan saw a storm cloud forming and drove away quickly. I bet he did after being struck 6 different times before. But the cloud, he said later, seemed to be following him. When he finally thought he'd outrun it, he decided it was safe to leave his truck. Soon after, he was hit by a lightning bolt. Sullivan stated that he actually saw the bolt that hit him this time. The lightning set his hair on fire, moved down his left arm and left leg, and knocked off his shoe, even though it did not untie the laces. It then crossed over to his right leg just below the knee. Still conscious, Sullivan crawled to his truck and poured the can of water, which he always kept there, over his head. 5 different times he had to pour water, so can you imagine having to carry water everywhere because you've been hit by lightning so many times? But here's the thing. He's a conduit of electricity. I mean, that's obvious, right? And you know what God wants? He wants us to be a conduit of His Holy Spirit. He wants us to be a conduit of His power. He wants us to be a conduit of His love. He wants us to be a conduit of His peace. He wants us to be a conduit of His justice. Whatever it is, God, all the great things in God wants to do great things through us. The electricity is one thing, but it has to have a conduit to reach. And you know, something that I thought of here too is the impact Jonathan made. One person, the impact that he made from going all out. The first thing that happened was the faithful were unleashed. I love this armor bearer. We don't know his name, but I love this guy. And when he went in with Jonathan, all of a sudden he is totally unleashed. There's some things we know about this guy. First of all, he was incredibly loyal, wasn't he? I mean, when somebody says, I am with you heart and soul, and they prove it with their body, they are loyal. Something else is, it didn't look like he had much to offer. The guy is really, really young. The guy has no experience whatsoever. The guy is completely untrained. There was a reason that he was the armor bearer and not the person using the armor. He was not the warrior. He was the person that was helping the warrior, that was holding the armor for the person that was the warrior. Another thing is he was courageous, wasn't he? I mean, either one of them is incredibly courageous, but at least Jonathan had a sword. The armor bearer didn't even have a sword. He's going full-blown into battle without a sword. I mean, talk about some guts, talk about some courage. And something else is that we have to understand is he was vital for this. I guarantee you that Jonathan wouldn't have gone into that battle if he hadn't had the armor bearer by his side. If he said, hey, let's do this, and the armor bearer said, no, let's not do this, I bet you Jonathan wouldn't have done it. Just him being there, he was vital. We do not know his name, but what a difference this guy made. Never, ever think that an anonymous is the same as not important. Because, long before you ever step foot in here, there's somebody that prayed over your seat that God would touch you today. For those who are watching online, all you who are watching online, the same thing. You were prayed for. Before you ever tuned in, you were prayed for. Something else too is people greeted you as you came in. There's people who are watching your children. There's people who are taking care of your youth. There are people who are on the cameras right now. There are people who are in the booth, to be able to project this around the country and around the world. There's people doing that. You may not know them. You may not know them by name, but don't mistake that we could not do what we do without them. And can we give them one more hand today? Another thing that happens too is he reminds us that half the battle is just showing up and paying attention. I mean, think of it. That's something that you all know, that all of you who volunteer, and thank you, God. Thank God for all of you. And there's so many volunteering right now that you can't be in the place because there's an army of people volunteering around our church right now. But here's the thing that some of you have discovered, and especially if you've gone on a mission trip or something, you realize that God has used you in ways that you never thought possible. And God has used your team in ways that you never thought possible. It blew you away. But here's the formula that I hope you never, ever forget. I hope you never forget this formula right here. Here it is. Go ahead and throw that up. Infinity times 0 equals what? 0, right? What is infinity times 1? Infinity. Isn't that crazy? Look at that. I mean, the infinity stays the same. The only difference between 0 and the infinity being able to use is the 1. And the same thing, that 1 is you. That 1 is me. That one, the God that wants to heal this world, the God that wants to bring peace, the God that wants to provide for people, God that wants to answer prayers, the God that wants to heal. All it takes is one person praying or loving or caring or providing or doing those things, and that turns the 0 into infinity. The power's not in the 1, the power's in the infinity, but God needs that conduit to make the difference. And here's the big thing too, he was changed. I mean, this guy was changed. Him taking that stand, him going behind Jonathan, it changed his life. I mean, he went in as somebody who had potential, and he left potent, right? I mean, he went in as an armor bearer. He came out as a warrior. He was just as much as a warrior when he came out as Jonathan was. And I want to say, just thank God for the Jonathans that have been in my life. And just think about the people who have believed in you when you haven't believed in yourself, or took a chance on you. I think about so many people like that in ministry in my life that just, that said, hey, I want you to preach here, or I want you to lead this Bible study when I was just a youth. Or even I remember one time, I think I said this a few months ago, but there was a time when I was on a mission trip, and on one of my first mission trips, and I was there with some most incredible speakers in our world, Christian speakers. They're dynamos. And I remember, what am I doing on this trip? I mean, I'm just a kid fresh out of seminary. And I remember that we had went to all these churches and everything, but there was the big event that we were going to do at a university in Brazil with thousands of people on TV and everything. And they looked at me and they said, we believe you're the one that's supposed to do this. And their faith in me, their belief in me when I didn't believe in myself, and that was incredible. And those Jonathans made a difference in my life. Thank God for the Jonathans in your life that believed in you. I remember when I first started in ministry too, that I wanted to be an associate pastor because I want to learn from somebody else's mistakes and everything. And the district superintendent said, no, he said, you're going to be a senior pastor straight out of the block. And he saw a leadership in me that I didn't see in myself. And I thank God for the Jonathans, the many, many Jonathans that have been in my life. And God's created you to be a Jonathan. Don't ever forget that. John's created you to be a Jonathan. And about a couple of years ago, I did kind of a survey with people, with probably even hundreds of people, and asked this. I said, who are the people that have made the biggest difference in your life? And I love the answers. So many people said their parents. And I came up to some of the parents and said, I want you to know what your son or daughter said about you. And it blew them away because they truly did not believe that they were making a difference, that their son or daughter would ever say that about them. Parents, you're making a difference in ways you never thought possible. Also, grandparents were mentioned. Something else that was mentioned, I love this. Spouses were mentioned a lot. The people said the biggest impact on my life is my husband or my wife. And in fact, some of the biggest encouragement in my faith is my husband or my wife. Other people said Christian leaders or pastors or youth pastors or Sunday school teachers was a big one. Coaches, teachers was something big. I loved what one person said. They said the person that's made the biggest impact on my entire life was the janitor in my school growing up. I said, you got to tell me this story. He said the person just always greeted me and always loved me and always there and always encouraging me and made me believe in myself when I didn't believe in myself. That person had the biggest impact on my life. Don't ever think that you're not having an impact. People are seeing, and you talk about going viral, just get into one life, love one life. I love the story about, it's a true story that happened in an inner city in Baltimore in the 1920s. Johns Hopkins University wanted to do a study on people there that they said they had deemed, this is their quote, that they said were doomed to prison. 200 people. And they found out that afterwards, 25 years later, they found out that only 2 of those 200 people had ended up in prison. And they said they wanted to know what made a difference. And they interviewed the people, and almost every single person mentioned one person. And that was a teacher that they had that they named Aunt Hannah. And we said, what did they do? Aunt Hannah just loved us. She encouraged us. She inspired us. She made us feel like we were somebodies. They encouraged us. That's what Aunt Hannah did and made a difference in 198 lives. Another thing is, so not only were the loyal people unleashed, but also the apathetic got excited. Listen to this. Saul's lookouts at Gibeah and Benjamin saw the army melting away in all directions. Then Saul and all his men assembled and went into the battle. What was the difference? One minute they're laying under a pomegranate tree, and the next moment they are involved in the battle. What took place? What happened? It was simply 2 people started doing something. They did something and inspired everybody. I want you to think how many times you've been inspired by one person doing the right thing, by one person. Think about how many times lives have changed in our nation by one person doing the right thing and taking the stand. There was a person that I asked when our youth group just exploded with numbers several years ago, and I asked, what made a difference? How did it grow so much? And I asked our youth pastor, and he said, one person. One young lady who just started inviting her friends, who invited their friends, who invited their friends, and all started with one person. We know that in sports, don't we? We know that in sports, that one person all of a sudden getting excited, doing a play in passion, that all of a sudden the whole team can get excited. Or one player can get out there and just do this, and all of a sudden 70,000 people are on their feet cheering and everything because of one person getting passionate and excited. And the same thing can happen in our families, can't they? I've seen families changed because either the dad or the mom or one of the children got turned on to God and went all in for God, and it changed their whole family dynamic because of one person that did that. Another thing is the prodigals were restored. And this one is hard to read for me. Those Hebrews who had previously been with the Philistines and had gone up with them to their camp went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. Did you get that? There were some Hebrews who had changed sides. There were some Hebrews who were now fighting against Israel. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, that all of a sudden they had turned their back on their own nation, they turned their back on their own people, turned their back. And you've seen people like that. I've seen people like that. There's people that all of a sudden that loved God and they served God and everything. And then all of a sudden, maybe they just got caught up in the wrong thing, or they got bitter at church, or they got bitter at God or something. And all of a sudden they were fighting against the God that they once loved and cared about so much. And we've seen that maybe that's what happens when there's a social issue or something, and we go on the side of culture instead of the side of God's word. Maybe we're turning our back. Maybe we're joining the enemy camp, which is a powerful thing to think about. Another thing is this: what inspired the people to transform and prodigals to return? It was just seeing the passion and courage of Christ's followers. I think the biggest thing that will inspire a person who is living like hell is seeing one person or a group of people that are living like heaven. It changed my life. When I was living like hell, all it took was seeing one person or a couple of people living like heaven, and it changed my life. I wanted to be like them. And the Bible says this: let your light so shine among people that they may see your good deeds and give glory to your Father in heaven. And in 1 Peter it says this: live such good lives among the non-Christians, among the non-believers, the non-Christ followers, that they may accuse you of doing wrong. They may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day that He visits us. And it was incredible when they just saw some people doing the right thing. They go, you know what? I'm not a Philistine. I was talking like a Philistine. I was acting like a Philistine. I was worshiping like a Philistine. I was attacking God's people like a Philistine. I'm not going to masquerade as that anymore. I'm an Israelite, and I'm going to live like an Israelite. Maybe sometimes we just say, you know, I've been masquerading, I've been apathetic, I've been whatever, and no more. I'm going to start living like a child of God, like what God has created me to be. And finally this: the broken are healed. When all the Israelites who had, don't miss this, hidden in the hill country of Ephraim, heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle, I love this, in hot pursuit. So there's this whole group of people, a whole portion of Israel is hiding in caves. They're hiding. They've become cavemen or cave women. And I want you to know God has never created us to be cavemen or cave women. That they were fearful. And just let's say what it is. We live in a fearful society right now. I mean, a really, really fearful society. There are people that are afraid of just about everything. I've never seen fear like we have right now. And we could go on and on, but it's not the way God created us to be. I talked to somebody just before, and they said, just after this first service, I'm just living in fear right now. I'm just living in fear. That's not what God created us to be. And here's what was happening. Fear had made them useless to the cause. They were unwilling to face their problems or sacrifice for the cause. And they hid. When they hid, they left the future to other people. I've been a pastor for a while now, and I've seen a lot of people that do that. There's people that are apathetic. There's people that are amazingly loyal. There's people that are hiding. There's people that leave the future to everybody else, that they're just hiding in the cave, so many of them right now. And God's just saying, man, come out. I haven't created you to be a caveman or a cave woman. And what's the difference? What happened when they all of a sudden became not fearful anymore? It's because they engaged in the battle. When they started getting in the battle themselves, they stopped being afraid. And that's what happens to us. When we start doing something, we're the one that's healed. If you're fearful, do something, encourage somebody else, and watch the fear go away in your own life. If you're not feeling loved, you love somebody else and watch love come back to you. The Bible says this, that pray for each other so that you may be healed. If you need prayer, pray for somebody and watch what happens in your own life. Whatever it is, that you want in somebody else, here's the secret of life. Here's this secret, is whatever you want in your own life, give to somebody else, pass it away. I love what somebody said this. Where was it that he just told me this? Oh my goodness, I can't see this. Oh, if you're on a plateau, sow. I like that. Isn't that cool? He said it's just been his own life. He's been on a plateau, and he said God has just said you sow in somebody else's life, and you'll get off a plateau in your own life. And here's something, just what I want to show you here. This is milk with chocolate in it. Now it is not chocolate milk yet, is it? I mean, there's a whole bunch of chocolate there at the bottom, and this is like so many people's lives. We have people that the Spirit is in, they have the Holy Spirit in them, or they have incredible gifts, they have incredible talents, but it doesn't do a thing. It's no better, it's no different. It doesn't make the milk chocolate until you do what? Until you stir it up. And God is saying, maybe you have a gift of administration, or a gift of mercy, or a gift of generosity, or a gift of healing, or a gift of whatever. And God is saying just what he said to Timothy, stir up your gifts. Maybe you stir up love, stir up goodness, stir up peace. There's things in your life that maybe are laying dormant right now. Maybe your life, or maybe part of your life, is under a pomegranate tree, and God is saying, stir it up. This world is no better, and you're no different than if we do that. You know the difference that makes in our life, that when God can change us and we can change the world around us? It's simply being available. It's saying, God, I'm available. I'm available for everything you want to do in my life. I'm available for everything that you want to do through my life. Where's God saying in your life to stir it up?